This is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson on AM 560. The Answer.
Banning of the bump stock. So it happened yesterday. Not a huge surprise because President Trump did discuss it earlier after the Las Vegas shooting that he was going to make an effort to get them off the streets.
We're knocking out bump stocks. I've told the NRA, I've told it, bump stocks are gone.
And with the help of Acting Attorney General Matthew Whitaker yesterday, they banned bump stocks, saying people have 90 days to turn them into ATF agents or to simply destroy them. Brian Claypool.
Should they get rid of their belt loops and as well?
Brian Claypool.
And rubber bands?
An attorney, and he also survived the Las Vegas massacre.
Huge relief. This is a monumental move. There is no social utility for bump stocks in a civilized society.
But a lot of our listeners, Second Amendment writers, disagree with that. And for the latest on the move that President Trump made, let's go to John Lott, who joins us. John Lott, welcome back to the program. He is the president of the Crime Prevention Research Center and author of The War on Guns and More Guns, Less Crime. Good morning, Mr. Lott. How are you?
Good morning, Amy. Merry Christmas.
Thanks. Merry Christmas to you, too. So we knew it was coming, but should it have been done? And do you think that this ban will be challenged in court?
To be honest, it doesn't really make a big difference to me. I don't care if they're banned. I don't think it's going to make any difference in terms of people's ability to go and put things like that together. And bump stock, you can basically make with 2 tubes and a spring. And, as I guess your guest host was saying there also, there are lots of other ways you can mimic the same thing. We see this type of discussion a lot. So, for example, people want to go and limit things like magazine sizes. A magazine is a box with a spring in it. I've seen people put one together in 2 minutes from scratch. And, if it makes people feel better to go and ban these types of things, fine. But, with bump stocks, I really don't care too much. With magazine sizes, I guess I care more because the main impact is going to be law-abiding citizens who, let's say, carry a concealed handgun because the only magazine that you're going to have, if you're just a normal person carrying, is going to be the one in the gun. And so the only people that you really limit are going to be law-abiding citizens. But, to me, there are a lot more important things to worry about, things like these red flag laws that are getting passed and other things I think are a much bigger concern than, I'm sure there will be suits. Even the Obama administration felt it was a bridge too far. They didn't have the power to go and ban bump stocks when they considered it in 2010. And, it'll be challenged probably, but I think personally it's a waste of people's time and resources to challenge it.
Mr. Lott, I am the guest host, and I prefer to remain anonymous because I'm
His
saying
name is Bruce Wolf.
I'm saying such an outrageous things like that you can use rubber bands and belt loops, and thank you for acknowledging that contribution that I made. Let's turn our attention to something that maybe we should be worried about, and that's the AR-15. We haven't heard about it recently because there hasn't been this mass shooting of children in schools or at a mall in the United States in a number of months, but that we're about ready for, unfortunately, because these things kind of feed on themselves. And I don't know if have you read Malcolm Gladwell about how the successive mass shootings become easier because people it's just a copycat phenomenon for one thing, but there doesn't seem to be the price to be paid, and it's going to happen, and then you're going to have that argument all over again about the AR-15.
Well, I guess it's not really obvious to me that there's been much new learned by these killers over time, what they had already learned a while ago. Maybe you saw innovations with the Las Vegas shooting, but any of the other ones are pretty much the same standard format that you have. These people go and try to find some type of gun-free zone, some place where they don't have to worry about somebody being able to go and stop them. They often take multiple weapons in with them at the same time. It's really hard to see much of a change in terms of this strategy over the last 20 years. So I guess, it would be the first time I didn't think Malcolm Gladwell was exactly on point.
No, but wouldn't you agree that there is a greater, and I know, and you're very good at arguing about this, that there's more mass shootings in Europe and the numbers haven't changed, but there is a certain type of mass shooting, and let's face it, it's the kind that people are really concerned about, and there might even be class and racial considerations involved in it as well. But, when you get a Parkland or you get, some mall where middle class or upper middle class people are, then that's when they really start getting upset. They don't get upset about 3 gangbangers in the Englewood neighborhood, which is a mass shooting. They care about that, and that does seem to be there seems to be an uptick among those types of mass shootings. A, can you agree to that? And B, even if you don't agree with it, should there? What's the argument in favor of keeping the AR-15?
Okay, well, over the last year, a little bit over a year, there has been an uptick, okay? But it isn't that large, and it's 2012 had more mass public shootings that we've had this year, and more than we had last year. So people often, if there's an uptick for 1 year, they see trends that are occurring in things where I think, if you look over the last 20 years or what have you, it's pretty hard to see much of a change. I mean, it's been up a little bit, mainly because the last year has been high. But look, it doesn't change the fundamental things of how these guys plan it. They're still planning these things 6 months to 2.5 years in advance, long periods of time in advance. It doesn't change the types of targets that they go after. As to the AR-15, look, if you want to go and ban all semi-automatic rifles, at least there's a logic to that. But to go and ban a small game semi-automatic rifle, which is what the AR-15 is, it fires .223 caliber bullets. For people who don't know that lingo, you have 22 caliber rifles, which are kind of like the smallest. This is a little bit larger bullet. It's a little bit longer. Mm-hmm. But most states won't even let you hunt deer with an AR-15. And the reason why they won't is because the bullet is so small that they're worried about wounding the deer rather than killing it. If these people wanted to go and make sure they kill people, they would have a semi-automatic rifle that had a bigger bullet, be more likely to kill people. But, the thing is, they fire the same bullets as another semi-automatic small game hunting rifle with the same rapidity, doing the same damage. The thing that gets people upset is the, quote, military style. I know they often say, well, that must mean they're the types of guns used by the military. And the answer is no. No military around the world uses these types of AR-15s that are used in these attacks. They use M16s, guns that look like this, but actually have an automatic burst mode or can fire machine gun style where one pull the trigger, bullets come out as long as you keep the trigger depressed. So, but if you're going to ban them, let's talk about banning all semi-automatic guns rather than just some that look like a military weapon.
Well, you won't get an argument from the liberals over that. You won't get an argument.
No, I know, but they won't. They don't want to do that. At least they haven't so far. I know you have people like the Democrat who's running for governor in Georgia who had supported a law like that in the past, and of course she was denying it for a while when she was running for election there now in Georgia. But the thing is, civilians benefit from semi-automatic guns. The alternative, so you have three types of guns. You have manually loaded, where you have to physically put a bullet in the chamber yourself. Semi-automatic, one pull the trigger, one bullet comes out, it reloads itself. One pull the trigger, one bullet comes out, it reloads itself. Or you have semi-automatic, which are machine guns. One pull the trigger.
Okay, and what's the benefit to the semi-automatic weapon? Because, the news, the nighttime news, just shows us the person who was shot and killed in Englewood. They never show the person who was protected by having a gun. It doesn't make for a story.
Sometimes they do.
No, but you're bringing up the exact point that needs to be talked about, and that is it takes time to manually load a gun. And so, you may not have the time to go and do that. If you fire a shot and you miss, or you wound but don't stop, a 220-pound man charging at you, do you have time? Having a couple seconds or a few seconds may make the difference between whether an individual is able to successfully defend themselves or not.
All right.
And so civilians understand that, and so they want to go and say, well, these are military weapons. I mean, whether it's Obama or Hillary Clinton or Kamala Harris or others, they use these terms, military weapons, and it's not accurate.
Okay.
Because no
All right.
militaries around the world.
So
would do
here's the
that.
thing. Since 2010, 520,000 bump stocks have been sold. And I would wonder, do you think, people are going to be law-abiding citizens and do what they're told? They have 90 days to turn over their bump stock to the ATF or to destroy it. Do you think people are going to listen? They're going to actually do this?
I think a lot of people will wait till the courts decide on this. But again, it's irrelevant whether people do it or not, because
it's not irrelevant because they banned them yesterday, so it's not irrelevant.
No, I understand. But in terms of people having access to them, if you give me a couple pieces of pipe and a large spring, I can put I've seen people put something like that together. They can put something like that together in just a few minutes. Wow. Or, as was mentioned, with belt loops or other types of things that are there to go and accomplish basically the same outcome. People don't usually use it because it's hard to aim a gun when you're doing that type of thing. It's only kind of like for fun, I guess. Some people get fun out of it. So, look, I'm not a rights person. To me, what matters is whether it saves lives. And bump stocks aren't things that you generally use for self-defense. It doesn't make a lot of sense to go and use it in most cases for self-defense. Mm-hmm. But things like AR-15s or semi-automatic guns generally do make sense. And so I think there's a difference there. But any criminal who wants to spend a short amount of time, like this guy in Las Vegas, this guy put together incendiary bombs. This guy made napalm from scratch. This guy had all sorts.
But he also turned 14 semi-automatic. He put bump stocks on 14 semi-automatic rifles.
He could have done that. The point is, this guy had the technical skills where he could have easily. I mean, he had a machine shop where he made these bombs. The police, one of the few things we've gotten out of them is how technically sophisticated the bombs were that he had. He had his whole car wired with napalm. He could have driven it into the crowd, and according to things I've read, the blast radius would have been 50 yards.
Yeah. Let's say we got
rid
rid
of people. Okay. You would have had people within 50 yards covered with napalm.
Right. Let's say we got rid of. Let's say we got rid of all the semi-automatic weapons. We got rid of all of them, and it was leveling the playing field, so to speak. So, I mean, how many lives would be lost from ordinary citizens who would no longer be able to defend themselves because they don't have the security of an AR-15? I know it's hard to quantify, but I mean, that's the argument right there. The liberals are going to say you don't need a semi-automatic weapon. You don't, because the semi-automatic weapon is the one that's used in the school killings and in the mall shootings. All you need is your regular reloading revolver. What do you say to that?
Well, I mean, there's a reason why police carry around Glocks, right? Which are semi-automatic handguns. Yeah. They believe for their own protection, the protection of others, it provides them some advantages for doing that. And the same advantages that apply to them apply to civilians who are there. Look, somebody who's going to plan these types of attacks in advance. Let me back up a second. This notion that somehow you can stop criminals from getting guns. Chicago had a gun ban. D.C. had a gun ban. Now, I know people will say, well, you had to ban guns every place around the country because it was banned in Chicago, but that doesn't explain why the murder rate went up in Chicago or D.C. Even island nations that have banned guns, whether it be Jamaica or Ireland, Republic of Ireland, or the UK, every single time murder rates have gone up. And the thing is, drug gangs in Chicago, I mean, how successful have you been in stopping the drug gangs from getting a hold of drugs in Chicago?
Right. So they got the guns, too. Yeah.
Well, right. But the same way they bring in drugs, they bring in guns. If I could click my fingers and cause all illegal drugs in the United States to disappear and all guns, how long would it take before drugs started coming into El Paso? 20 minutes? And they bring in the weapons at the same time, because it's not like a drug gang can go to the police and say, look, this other drug gang stole our drugs. Can you help us get them back? They have to essentially set up their own militaries to go and protect that. Mexico has a murder rate more than 5 times the murder rate in the United States. They have one gun store in Mexico. Since 1972, they've had one gun store run by the military. Basically, the most powerful rifles you can buy are a .22 rifle. Those aren't the types of guns that the drug gangs use.
Mr. Lott, we appreciate your coming on. Amy's got me in her crosshairs right now. And,
I know. This seemed like it was going longer than
No, that's great.
Right.
You're great. I could listen to you forever.
And thank you for the information. It's always a pleasure having you on. Thank you. John Lott, Jr., president of the Crime Prevention Research Center and author of the book, More Guns, Less Crime. He joined us on our turnkey.pro.